Is this on? Am I recording? Hello, I'm here. Hey folks, it's Blammo. I'm Jeremy Kirkland. I'm glad you're here. Wow, what a week. Jeez. Right now, the whole world somehow got Omicron overnight. It's pretty crazy out there. I hope you all are staying safe and vaxxed up. I watched SNL. I'm just going to tell the story real quick. I watched SNL and Paul Rudd is there. And there was like 3 other people. I mean, it was just down to a skeleton crew. I mean, it's nuts because I was in New York the other week and everything was popping, and now it is not. Jeez. We're starting to wrap up this year, little over halfway through the season, and this episode this week. Let me just say, like at the beginning, before I record these, I re-listened to the entire episode just to kind of make sure, make sure there's nothing too crazy. And this, I was like, what on earth was going on the entire time? It's Nigel Cabourn. Okay, so if you're not familiar with who he is a legend in the clothing industry, British designer. He has a vintage archive that is jaw-dropping and staggering. I mean, he's been in business since the 1970s and has been creating a world with incredibly rich history and storytelling. Fun fact, Paul Smith, the designer, who's also been on the pod, was an early employee of his. I mean, he's been around, and what's beautiful is he hasn't really changed. I mean, he's still been this incredibly warm, authentic person. But talking with him was an emotional roller coaster. It was a recorded Zoom, but Nigel was rarely sitting down. He's such an evangelist for his craft. Like, we'd be discussing something and he'd just get up and like walk away from the microphone to go show me what he was talking about. And then he would tell me like 3 or 4 stories about it, trailing off to another story before finding his way back to the chair to continue our conversation. And I kind of loved it. I mean, it was just, it felt like I was at his house and he was just showing me around. And he was so happy and proud of what he's accomplished, as you should, because, I mean, again, he's just created an incredible brand with Nigel Cabourn. And, another thing that I loved is he was brutally honest at times, at calling out his own brand multiple times for what he liked and didn't like. He would say like, oh, I wouldn't wear that right now, or I would wear this too big, or we need to change this, or we're going to redo all that. And I think for most designers and people who are in charge of, multi-million-dollar companies, it's rare. So it was just incredibly refreshing to have this conversation with him. And he's been someone that I've been wanting to have on just since I started this pod. I told him how I basically met him because I called his store on not his store, his office on the phone, trying to locate a piece. And this is like ages ago. But it was cool. I mean, it was just an amazing conversation. I'm so glad that you all get to hear this. So I'm going to shut up. I hope you all are getting ready for a wonderful holiday. Here's my conversation with Nigel Cabourn. I think I met you over the phone first.
All right.
Because I called you in like 2000. No, this was before FaceTime. I think this was like 2009 or 10. I was trying to buy a cameraman jacket and I called your shop.
Oh, really? And you met me?
I found you, I think, in a Japanese magazine. Right. And I called you and you were very kind, but you were like, what? You're like, I think you need to find a retailer. You're like, I don't have them just to give you.
2009, was it?
It was, yeah, I think the cameraman jacket had like just come out. It might have been maybe 2010, but I think it was like sometime between like 08.
That's 11 years.
Yeah, I know.
You don't look that old. You only look about 18. What age are you?
36.
Oh, 36. Yeah, how are you?
I'm great. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to chat with you.
Good to meet you. I mean, obviously, when we talked 11 years ago, this is 11 years ago, I don't remember that conversation.
That's okay.
And when did we ever meet face to face then?
Yeah, then I met you, I think, through Maurizio Donati at PT Uomo.
You mean Maurizio Dondi, I call it.
Yeah.
I'm very close to him. Him and I are best of buddies. And of course, he's had some top jobs with Double RL. He was boss of Double RL. He's boss of Levi Vintage. He worked very closely with Mr. Armani, as he calls him.
Yeah.
And Kyle, who you've just met. Kyle, have you met Kyle before? Because Kyle's been with me 12 years. Because Kyle knows Maurizio very well.
Kyle, hey, how you doing, man?
Yeah, he's about your age.
His face is definitely familiar, yeah.
I'd say his
I'm
face
bald.
is familiar.
Oh, yeah.
If that looks more familiar.
I've got a bit more hair on top than you. What do you think? I mean, for 72, I think I'm doing okay now.
Yeah, I think you're doing pretty good.
Pretty good for 72. It started to grow back.
That's incredible.
It's these vegetable tablets I'm taking. I did have a transplant. It's just starting to grow. I don't know how it started to grow. I mean, that's how it started to grow back, Kyle.
Yeah, you said, yeah.
It's really growing back. It's ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. They even got like pills for it now that people are taking.
I've been taking plenty of pills, but not to grow my hair. You know, I'm taking pills for this and that, taking pills for greens. I've got creams for my face, you know.
Yeah,
you're not wearing any creams, I can tell, though. You're too white creams.
Yeah, I'm a very fair-skinned, fragile boy.
Yeah. So how you doing?
Wonderful. I mean, I really want to thank you for making the time to chat.
Well, no, it's great because I've only done a couple of podcasts. I just did one.
With my friends Lawrence.
Lawrence, with what they call them again, Southern Kicks.
Throwing fits.
Throwing fit. And they actually were super guys. And I think that's the first really proper podcast I've done. And it was really good fun with them because they're really funny. And I picked up a couple of tips from them. They were really nice. And I've also done one with Ponytail. Do you know Ponytail Journal?
Yeah, Lauren, yeah. Yeah, so I used to work with her when I worked at a shop years and years ago called The Armory.
Oh, yes, I remember The Armory. The Armory is in Hong Kong, isn't it? Yeah,
there's in Hong Kong, but I had worked in the one, we had opened the Armory in New York.
Oh, right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and she had come over there.
Do you know Joe then from the Billionaires Club?
Yes.
Joe,
yeah.
Joe's really good friends because I like Joe. He's a cool guy. And he used to work, I think, in Hong Kong with the Double RL store.
Yeah, and I think we had a mutual friend through a guy named Ethan Newton who runs Brycelands out of Japan.
I know Ethan very well.
Yeah.
And he lives in Japan, doesn't he, in Tokyo?
Yeah.
The big guy, I wrestled him about 2 years ago. And he couldn't take me down, but I couldn't take him down. So we were a complete stalemate. But one thing he did do when we'd finished at the stalemate, he literally picked me up because he's that fucking strong. You know, he lifted me up. You know, he's a strong man, but he couldn't take me down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
nice fella. He's a nice fella, actually, him.
Yeah, those guys are great. And it's funny because I've talked to, hundreds of people over the, years, and many of them have been like, you got to get Nigel on. Even when your old colleague, Paul Smith, I talked to Paul Smith.
Well, because Paul worked for me years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did Paul have to say for himself? You interviewed Paul, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. He said that he got you into vintage.
He did. There's no argument. He got me into vintage in 1978. He came and brought a jacket to me in that about. Well, he was working for me from about 73 to 75 on and off. And then he wanted to be a designer himself. So we started to show in Paris with his wife, late 70s. And one day he was always used to pitch himself very near me. So I'd have the Cabourn, but he would have the Paul Smith. This is before he was never known or anything.
Yeah.
One day he was on the stand. He come onto my stand. It was about 1970. I said, Nigel, I've got fucking something here to show you. And he showed me this jacket, British Army jacket, RAF one, from World War II. And it had this button and tape on. It's like a little button with a slide through it. Mm-hmm. I thought, fucking hell, I love that. I know Catherine Hamlet used it about 5 years later, but I was definitely the first people to use that. And then Daniel Hishton plagiarized it in about 1980. But I had it off with that button and tape. And it's sort of stuck with me as a trademark, I think, for years. Although I haven't used it for a long time.
Yeah, I think so many people that I've talked to and just other people that I've met over the years have always talked about how because of you, they got into vintage.
Honestly.
You know? Yeah. Oh my God, for sure.
Yeah. Funny, isn't it? Because I don't sell the vintage, but I bang the drum about it enough, don't I? Yeah.
Well, I think you're one of the few people who's also, it feels like you've led a lot with transparency in your design, connecting it to the vintage, where a lot of people say, look, I love Ralph Lauren and I love that, but they're not always going to say, well, this is from this jacket. And, they just kind of put it all together. And
I think that's why I've got close on 300,000 people following me on Instagram because of the transparency.
Yeah.
It's definitely what you give out, you get back, And I always talked about the vintage. I'm not frightened to tell people where the ideas come from because it gives you an interesting story for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, because you're also like half historian.
Well, what I don't know, I make up. So don't be too convinced about that. I make a lot up.
Well, you're not alone. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, but of course, I don't make it up completely from bullshit. But obviously, I have an idea because I know so much about stuff. So what I don't know, I improvise on. You see. Yeah. So there's a bit of truth in it.
Yeah. And I think, you've also been someone who it feels like now a lot of designers will continue to make the same piece every year and maybe alter it. But early on, when you'd started with like the Summit collection, the Edmund Hillary stuff, I mean, you still make the Everest parka.
I still make the Everest parka. That's coming up 20 years.
Yeah.
The Mallory jacket's coming up 20 years. Cameraman's 20 years. Just to let you know, Kyle and I are going to launch this again, aren't we, Kyle, for 2023. We're actually going to do it again in a contemporary way. So for 2023, we are 20 years for Nigel Cabourn and 70 years for Edmund Hillary. And we're going to do a contemporary version of it. And I think we'll probably do a new little book, but we want to make it more contemporary. It won't be a repeat of the Everest parka. It'll be something more modern approach.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Everest parka, I remember going on a hunt and saving for like over a year to get the Everest parka. But I remember I was, just in shock at the quality of it and the wire, in inside the hood. And I mean, it's still one of the most like incredible pieces of clothing I own.
Well, a lot of people don't know. Everybody thinks I make a fucking fortune at everything I do. But the reality of the Everest parka, each piece costs nearly £700. So I pay, which is about $1,000 US. So each piece that we make is about $1,000. And the ventile in itself, there's 3.5 meters at 25 quid a meter. The sheepskin is about £25. The kilt is about £18. It costs £660 is the exact price to make one piece. So you're not far short of $1,000. So I mean, we sell it for about 1,000, 1,100 quid wholesale. So I'm not making that much money on it. And we have to pay up front for every piece. So we've used the same small manufacturer since 2003. And he's the only one left in the whole of Great Britain. And he makes, I mean, the most we've ever made in a season is 300. And to make 300 Everest parkas, you need about £250,000 to fund it because he can't afford to give us any credit. So you have to pay up front to make them. So the more we sell, the more fucking hard it is to finance. So
jeez.
It's a labour of love, that Everest parka. It's always been a labour of love. I mean, some years I've had to find £250,000 in advance to make 250 pieces. It's well, we don't have to do that with anything else, but the Everest Parker is a work of art, let me tell you. And it's based on the 1956, 58 Antarctic expedition with Edmund Hillary and George Low, going from north to south of Antarctica. Okay, and it's also based on the jackets that got to the top of Everest, but have conveniently used the Antarctic concept for the Everest styles, if you see what I say. I mixed the two up. So everybody thinks that is what Edmund Hillary got to the top of Everest in, but he didn't. He went from north to south of Antarctica in that jacket, you see. So I was very clever again in giving a bit of mixed information.
Well, but you were, I mean, and I think a lot of designers have leaned more on this over the years, but like you were a clothing brand that was, to many people, a storyteller. I mean, you still are, but like you were telling a story. I mean, look, I mean, to talk about Ralph Lauren again too. I mean, all they do is tell stories. Then they just say, oh, by the way, here's the clothes in the story.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Ralph Lauren's a genius at what he does as well, because I mean, he'll pay £10,000 for a vintage piece. So we did the cold weather Parker back 20 years ago, which we're going to relaunch. Carl and I have been talking about it just today. And there's a white version of the cold weather Parker, which is used. Obviously, the RAF did them in grey, and then they did them for the army in green. Now there's a white one as well, which I'm not quite sure what the white one was used for, but I saw one of those up for sale. It was £10,000 for the white one.
Jeez.
We actually hired it off Doug, the vintage showroom. But he told me I think he sold it to Ralph Lauren for £10,000. I think he was the one that sold it to Ralph.
Yeah, there's quite a few stories of folks. I know that Jason shot of the American leather jacket company shot. They had a shot jacket in their store, and Ralph came in and was like, "This is really great. Like, I'd love to have it." And he was like, "Sorry, it's not for sale." And he was like, "Well, I mean, like, just name your price." And he's like, "No, sorry, it's like there is no price." And he's like, "But if you want, I'll loan it to you. You know, I'll loan it to you." And so apparently it's been on loan for quite a few years.
To be honest, I've had the same situation. Quite often, I've just said, "Look, I'll give you £2,000 for it." Now, you've got a jacket that's probably worth £500 or £600, and I really want it, so I'll maybe bid them £2,000, and I'll get it. I mean, obviously, I don't bid 10,000 for something that,
sure,
but I would bid 2,000 or 3,000 if I really wanted it. There's a new RAF jacket that we've just found, which is on that Saunders company in Canada, and I've wanted to buy that for some time, and I've managed to hire it, but I'd pay £3,000 for that if I could get it. It's a great piece. So, but I don't see many really great pieces now, but when I see them, I know them, and I definitely would pay the money for them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most of the great pieces you already have, right?
Well, probably 70% maybe. I mean, they keep popping up all the time. There's still pieces I want, for sure. This Canadian RF one is superb, because you're obviously banging to vintage. So,
oh yeah, I mean, it's the thing that I always tell people about vintage is it's not going to get made ever again. There are people that will remake vintage, but there's nothing that's going to be made for that for the original purpose.
Well, some people are experts at it. I mean, Real McCoy is an expert at it. Have you interviewed the Real McCoy guy?
So his son listens to the show.
Great. He's a very good. He's a good kid. The son, isn't he? He's very nice. The dad, though.
Yeah.
And the son's very handsome kid. The son, a very nice kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the family. Very nice. I've been to see him a few times. Me and Ponytail went together. We went to when we were in Japan some years ago. We jumped on the bullet train. We went to see him, and he showed me his whole setup. What a setup he's got!
I heard his Leica collection's insane too.
He's got everything. That guy. he's definitely worth going to see. If you got a chance, he's got a great place.
Yeah.
And the best vintage. He's got, well, I got 4,000 pieces. But I found out recently that Massimo Osti, actually before he died, he had 36,000 pieces. So my 4,000 pieces is pretty irrelevant when you think that Massimo Osti had 36,000. I would think that the real McCoy guy's got huge quantity as well.
Well, I mean, that kind of brings me to some of the stuff I want to talk to you about, because you're a clothing designer, you're a historian, you're like an educator, formally and informally. But I'm curious, with the archive and stuff that you've built, do you ever have any desire to like open up a museum for it, or? Well,
everybody asks me that question.
Yeah.
The problem is, because I'm so actively running and working in the business and doing all the collaborations and chasing around the world, which I love doing, I don't really have time. I mean, I've got the opportunity quite a few times. The book that, the vintage books that Doug done, the vintage books that the vintage showroom done, well, they were all my books, and I turned them down. And the reason I took them on in the first place when he asked me, because I wanted to give my daughter a job. But when she came to face up to do it, she said, Dad, I can't spend all my time doing shots on dummies and garments. I hate it. And so I realized what a huge job it was. So I decided not to do it. And Doug did it. And then he did 3 books and made a great job, a much better job than I ever could have done. Because you need a lot of patience to do a book. So the same people ask me now to do a book, and I keep poo-pooing it because I want to do it, but the time put into a book is just endless.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's not like you're going to earn 100,000 making a book. You might make 15,000, and it's a year's work.
Yeah, books are always end up, unfortunately, some form of service to the arts rather than any, financial gain.
Yeah.
Well, but it's still great that you have that. If to go back, like when you got your first vintage piece from Paul, what, obviously you've built this massive collection since. But what was that like when you started incorporating more of that stuff into your designs?
Well, he gave me the jacket first. So in about 79, he came on the stand with the jacket, and I hadn't really seen vintage properly. I mean, obviously through being being a fashion student in the 60s, I was very privy to Vietnam and the flower power and the pop music. So obviously knew all about the vintage. But actually, I started in 1971 on jackets based on pop music. And I was very inspired by pop music. And it was only in the late 70s that I got into vintage. Paul Smith showed me the jacket. And I said, fucking hell, where did you get that from? It's in the flea market, Nigel, in Paris. Have you never been? I said, no. And he took me to the flea market in Paris to Clignancourt. Took me the next day. I think it was on a Sunday. And I couldn't believe it that there was actually all these old Army and Navy type stalls selling vintage. You can buy it for nothing. So I got some vintage pieces back from 78 and 79. Which I probably paid 60 or 80 pounds. I mean, that cold weather parka that I've got, which is what I used to do the Everest parka, I paid 80 pounds for it. It's now worth 3,000 pounds. I want that garment now. It's 3,000, and I bought it for 80 quid originally. So if you look at it, in 40 years, they've gone from 80 pounds to 3,000 for a really cool piece.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you can wear
it. and it gave me the idea for the cold weather parka, you see.
Yeah. And, as you kind of like moved over to that, I mean, for many people, including myself, they discovered you from the cameraman. Like, how did that come about?
You found my brand through the cameraman, did you?
Yeah. Oh my God. Because I'd never seen anything like it. Because I've always been someone who loved 60/40s and Sierra designs and the old California stuff.
Same here. I loved it as well.
but it was never, I'd nenever seen anything that was incorporating wool and waterproof in the same
Well,
garment.
the cameraman was a complete fluke because I had a really great right-hand guy. I'm talking about Gary James, who's now head of the outerwear at Barber, and he's in his 60s now. And I had this idea in about 2001, 2002, to do something based on Everest, because I'd found some great books on Everest. And I thought, fucking hell, look at these pieces. I couldn't believe it. So I went all through the Lake District, because I had wonderful vintage bookshops in those days. And I went right through the whole of the Lake District, finding one book after the next. I couldn't believe the styles. And I found the Ascent of Everest book, which was wrote by Sir John Hunt. And that was the book about getting to the top of Everest. And I looked in the book, and they had 12 pictures of the 12 climbers that went up Everest. And one of them was wearing a jacket with a hood.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's a cameraman jacket, isn't it? Because he was a cameraman. So because cameraman, it then thought, cameraman jacket, cameraman, okay? And it reminded me of the vintage piece. And the vintage piece was the United States Marine jacket with, the one with the clips. I'll show you now. I've got the exact piece here.
FYI, Nigel is getting up and going to show me these pieces. This is incredible.
This is the exact top of the cameraman jacket.
With the fasteners on there. Yeah. Jeez Louise. Piece.
And then I had a army Filson jacket. Filson made an army Recorder tie.
Yeah.
But with a shirt collar. They made one of those in the Second World War in Army Green. And I thought, I like the bottom of that. And I just threw that down and threw the Filson jacket down. I thought, fucking hell, look at that. There's a jacket. And I designed the whole collection in 2002 like that. Because Gary was like my right-hand man. He used to get quite impatient with me. And he says, I can't be bothered with this project now. You fucking go on and do it yourself. In a much more polite way. And that's what I did. And we photographed the top jacket and the bottom of the Filson jacket, stuck them together. And that's how I designed that whole collection. And it was based on, and how I did the Antarctic Parker is I went all the way to New Zealand. I was invited to the America's Cup.
Yeah.
Which was in 2002 or 2003 in New Zealand. I went all the way to New Zealand with my wife, and we were invited business class to go all the way to Australia by Riri Zips. We're making the zips to zip on the actual boat. Used to zip the fucking canvas on the boat with that huge zip. So anyway, because I'd started using Riri Zips from about 1980. They invited 4 designers from around the world. So they took me and my wife business class all the way to New Zealand. It was costing 20 grand. And it was a lovely and amazing time. And I couldn't get off the plane quick enough because I got wind of that it was Edmund Hillary's 50th anniversary getting to the top of Everest in 2003. And here he was having an exhibition in Auckland. And I was on a plane going to Auckland, to do with the America's Cup.
Yeah.
I was so lucky. And when I went to the museum in Auckland, I bumped into somebody who I vaguely knew. And I got talking to him about something, and he actually told me that the actual Antarctic Parker that went supposedly up Everest, but it was actually the one that went across Antarctica, was actually in Christchurch, in Marydown, who were an outerwear company of the day, and it was in the front of their foyer of their office. So I said to my wife, I'm not coming to that thing tomorrow. I'm jumping on a train and I'm going to fucking Christchurch. She says, are you fucking mad? I says, yeah. So I went. I think she came with me in the end. And I went all the way to Fairy Down. And I knocked on the door, and there were a beautiful old company. And in the foyer was the Antarctic Parker in a fucking cabinet. And I said,
Wow.
"Is there any way I could take that and photograph it?" Let me photograph it. I tried to take all the pictures, and that became Everest Parker. But I had to go all the way to New Zealand to get that.
Jeez.
Yeah, so there's a fucking story to every piece you did, actually.
This episode is sponsored by Standard & Strange, your go-to in-person or online store for rugged yet elegant wardrobe staples. Founded in 2012, what was once a tiny store in a back alley in Oakland has evolved into one of the best retailers in America. With incredible brands and more, they have everything you need and are experts in every product they sell. Yes, they can help you fit those jeans or those boots online. Believe the hype. With locations in Oakland, Santa Fe, and now New York City, Standard & Strange has the deepest selection of the real McCoys around. If you want goods that go way beyond just reproductions of the most iconic pieces from the 20th century, the real McCoys is it. Every detail is considered down to the custom thread used in the flight jackets. And the biggest selection is at Standard & Strange. My personal favorite is their loop wheel sweats. Nice and short in the length for the classic look. Dude, if you don't have like 2 or 3, you're just missing out. So visit standardandstrange.com/Blammo to learn more. And while you're there, check out their new arrivals. Standard & Strange. Own fewer, better things. Standardandstrange.com. One of the things that like also in terms of fashion design, right? Like, and let's kind of like take this and set it aside. When many people will make something, they'll say, okay, let me make it look really nice. And I'll use materials that are good enough, but I want to make a bunch of money off of it. So I'm going to cut every corner I can, right? Like that's kind of your bad design, but like what most people do. But for you, for like example, the cameraman, you had Harris tweed, you had Macintosh, you had the metal fastener.
Macintosh is 30 quid a meter stuff.
Exactly. And so like
Harris tweed is 24 quid today. It was a really expensive garment. I mean, it was about 800 quid when we did it at the time. I mean, we do it now, 1,100 quid. Yeah.
And I mean, and I think, I'm curious, like, why did you decide to use materials that were just such a high quality?
Simple answer, British. So when you do something limited edition and you're going to launch it the same way as Edmund Hillary climbed Everest with his 11 companions, they were all wearing old military stuff. So in World War I, George Mallory took some of his World War I clothes, military clothes, to climb Everest, mixed with Harris tweed. And in World War II, Edmund Hillary was in World War II, and he used some of his clothes to climb Everest, particularly in particular the army pant with the pockets on the front leg. And so obviously it made common sense to me to use British fabric. And there's not many British fabrics. So oilcloth, Ventile, Harris tweed, Macintosh fabric, all key British fabrics. Yeah. So it's a truly British project. And everything was made in Britain as well. So fabrics were made, garments were made, and they were coming generally from mine. Having said that, the cameraman came from the Filson and the US Navy. Yeah. But generally the pieces were coming from British, everything was British.
Yeah, I mean, including, because you've really led the campaign in charge for making things in Britain. I mean, even when like capitalism wise, it might not have been the greatest way to make a lot of money, but like, I think the legacy that you've built has been so much about manufacturing things the traditional way with the traditional fabrics.
Well, I had to in those days. It's a lot more different today. Things have moved on so much in 20 years. and if you make a cameraman today the way that I make it, it's perceived as very old-fashioned and fuddy-duddy. And to be very honest with you, although we're still making the cameraman today, I hate to say it, but I don't particularly want to wear it myself. If I was to wear a cameraman today, I'd want to wear a size 54, 4 sizes too big, and then I'd feel reasonably cool in it. But I wouldn't wear a Cameron or a Harris tweed jacket particularly. So one of my big challenges now when we redo the limited edition from 2003, which is 20 years and 70 years Denim and Hillary, it will have to be made contemporary. And I'm working and thinking about that all the time. And when Carl and I have discussions on it now, it's always about how are we going to make, because he's much more contemporary than me, because he's half my age or a third my age. And he actually wasn't with me, obviously. But we need to make it more contemporary now, I feel. I don't want to repeat it again. I'd be bored senseless with it. So I really going to have to think it through. I've got lots of ideas. I'm already working on it.
Yeah.
But I'm not working on it from the drawing board point of view, but I will be soon.
Yeah.
Because, I've done a collaboration with Peak Performance and a collaboration with Hagloft. So I've done quite a lot of mountain wear lately. The ski come mountain wear. So over the last 2 or 3 years, I've done a lot for other people. I don't even see the one I've done for Haglofts. It's just come out, the Haglofts one.
I mean, the collabs you've done, especially with even just like more like the Army Gym things too, I mean, are just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not particularly, listen, when I first started the Army Gym in 2016, and that was all based on the medicine ball, okay?
Yeah.
And built myself up and tried to take 10 years off my fucking life, or off my age. It seems to have taken 10 years off my life instead. It was actually made to take 10 years.
Yeah.
It put 10 years on me, I think, it's such hard work.
Yeah.
Got 3 of them, 3, 5, and 7 little. And of course, this one, you can see how fucked up it is. This is because I chuck it against the wall. So this is because it's had years of chucking against the wall. And this has been in my suitcase with the other 2 to Japan. So for 12 years, I took this to Japan with me. Or maybe not 12, maybe 8 years, sorry. And so I've taken 3 medicine balls to Japan. And if you look back at my Instagram 5 or 6 years ago, you'll see I was always training in Japan. But of course, I used to go business class. So I used to take one bag full of 3 balls. So there was a 3, 5, and 7. 3 medicine balls used to go into one suitcase. I used to take them to Japan with me. So that's got a bit of a story to it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw you working out on the Arno in Florence with your medicine balls at like 8 a.m. once morning.
Yeah, I used to take it to Bitiomo. I used to have my friend Daniel, and we always used to. We've always done it, It's been all around the world, those balls.
Yeah.
But that started the Army Gym. That started the collection. But I'm not happy with what we're doing with the Army Gym now. And I'm looking to update this. And I need to get back to my roots on that, which I will be doing in the next 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because how many different brands do you have? Because you have the Army Gym.
Well, I've got the Army Gym that's really based on my sport, on the helm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I made sort of a thing of that over the last 6 years. Then I've got the Authentic, which is all made in England. Yeah. Then I've got the main line, which is my Japanese collection using Japanese fabrics and fills all my 15 stores in the Far East. And then I've got the Libro, which is British workwear, and it's proper authentic workwear. Although it's mixed authentic and armies, it's sort of a mixture. Well, it's really a mixture of military mixed with real British workwear. Because anything that's like war on the decks, for instance, with the US, when the weather stood on the decks, it was really a workwear job, even though they're wearing military. So we class that as workwear, you see.
Yeah.
And, so I've got 4 collections, and I do the same in the women's.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which is also, I mean, that was a newer thing when you had launched the women's collection.
Yeah, well, we launched the women's collection about 2012.
Yeah.
So we do 4 collections on the women's as well. And then I do all the collabs on top. So some seasons I might be doing 6 collabs and 4 men's collections and helping Emily with the women's. So I'm pretty busy.
Yeah. I had read that years ago that Montclair knocked on your door to do a collaboration.
Yeah, no, I've had everybody knock on my door. Funny enough, Montclair was a big one.
Yeah.
I got a personal telephone call from Ruffini on Montclair. He just rang me out of the blue, and he loved what I was doing in Barney's at the time. At one stage, I had a whole department in Barney's in New York.
Yeah.
I was doing very well with Barney's. They were so respectful to me, and he'd seen it and loved it. And anyway, he just called me from Italy, invited me over, stuck me in a hotel. And anyway, we had a long chat, and I stayed the night. I saw him the next day. So in the end, when he showed me his account list, it was the same account list that I was selling to. I thought, well, it's not going to work for me. So I just turned it down. And that was it. But he did send me a nice mail saying, if you ever want to do it again, the door was open. This was about 6 years ago. You know?
Yeah.
So I didn't do it for my sins. But I've worked closely with Filson. I had 4 seasons with Filson. I worked with Eddie Bauer. I worked with Red Wing. I worked with Yucatan. Of course, I'm now working with Vans and just done that 15-piece collection of Vans Vaults, which is fantastic.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that because it's really great. And of course, I've worked with Converse for 6 years as well. So, I've done a lot of American brands.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, on that note, I mean, one of the things that, especially because I talked to a few listeners of ours and told them that I was going to chat with you. And a few of them sent over some questions that they wanted to ask you specifically of what's your take on some of the best eras of clothing.
How long have you got?
Oh, I mean, well, as long as you have, to be honest.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is because fucking make so many errors. As long as my arm, the errors I made with all the collaborations. I would say the Vans Vaults one feels at this time to be the most successful one I did in America, because we got 33,000 pieces for the first season, which is amazing.
Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 33,000 pieces is a lot. But then I did 6 sneakers and 8 pieces of clothing. It's a big collab, that.
Yeah.
And I think almost all the Vans Vaults stores have come into it. I think there's somewhere up to nearly 200 Vans Vaults have bought into it. So, because normally Vans Vaults do a couple of sneakers. They wouldn't do it. I think that's the biggest collab they've ever done for pieces.
It's insane. But like one of the things I wanted to ask you about, like, as you've seen so many different types of vintage and different eras of vintage, what would you say, like what was the best decade for American denim? Was it the 60s? Was it the 50s?
Well, for collecting vintage, actually collecting the American vintage, I would say from about 2010 upwards, that was a wonderful time to collect very rare pieces. Of course, I've got all the rare naval denim pieces, all that stuff in the 10 ounce.
Yeah.
There's fantastic pieces. So I managed to get all of those. And then I've got a lot of really rare 30s pieces. I mean, Maurizio Dondi said some of the denim pieces that I showed to Maurizio, he said, oh, well, Levi's were looking for that one, but couldn't find it, So, I mean, I've got some pretty rare pieces that even Levi's couldn't find. But, I mean, the stuff that they made in the 1930s and 40s was pretty incredible, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that 40, like, I keep a running log of eBay search alerts for just like made in America, like 80s and 90s 501s. And I've, got maybe like 20, 30 pairs of them. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, to be honest, they're not really that special.
I like the 60s 501s.
60s.
Because I wore one when I was a kid. In 1967, of course, I wore 501s. And even though I was never a big jeans person to wear stuff, but I did as a kid. And obviously everybody wore 501s at Fashion College. And when we had the student revolt in 1967 worldwide, it was an M62 and a 501, Yeah. So yeah. But I've got some great denim pieces. And I haven't been very good with denim for years. I wasn't really a denim designer. I didn't understand it. And I really started only to design the denim. I don't think we started real denim until 2012. And what happened is I've got good Japanese partners, so they caught on quicker than me. So all the denim pieces that I was collecting, which was turning into other things, they were actually turning them into denim. So the best denim pieces were made by my Japanese partners for Nigel Cabourn mainline. And they are a lot better than what I was doing, actually, to be fair.
Well, I mean, yeah, because the denim, you did a denim that actually with the armory too. And the Nigel Cabourn, like, you know, it was a higher rise denim. You had the almost like the British military arrow on the back pocket, like the bar tack. But like the shape, it's probably, I think, one of the best, most underrated pairs of jeans out there. And like, and I collect Resolute and Sugarcane and all that stuff.
I remember doing that. I did have a beautiful pair of denim. About that time that you're talking, I had a little short denim work jacket and a pant match it. And they took a great shot of me out in New York. There's a shot of me wearing a full denim outfit, you know. It's about 2016. And it was all made in Britain, that, using a Japanese denim. And that had the broad arrow on the cinch on the back, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's a good piece to do again. Kyle, that workwear suit that we did. Maybe that's a good one to bring back, because we made that in England, you know. I've still got that suit. I think it's in there. I
mean, definitely bring it back, because it was incredible. I was searching high and low for those jeans, and I mean, only got them not that long ago.
They were quite big fit. How did you manage to get one?
Well, so the ones I got were just the 5-pocket ones. I think the one you're referring to is almost like the jumpsuit cinch, you know.
Yeah,
thing.
cut off. Yeah. Well, I've still got that one, and it's quite full. And there's a picture of me in New York wearing it. I'm sitting on a metal thing. You've probably seen that picture.
Yeah.
And it also has a little short 3-pocket work jacket as well, based on the Blue Ore one from 1930, which Maurizio told me is the one that Levi Vintage couldn't find. He said it was worth a few thousand. I have the exact piece on that one.
That's great.
I also have the naval one with the hood with the white springs as well. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
Yeah. It's quite
the naval one's great.
2,000 or 3,000 for that one. We've done it a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you some stuff that's not related to clothes, but is related to you. What are some books that you've read that have made you more into clothes? I
mean, basically, there's no books that really made me interested in clothes. You've got to understand, there was a fashion school from 67 to 71.
Mm-hmm.
It's just rolled all my life. So I never read books particularly well, but I love pictures. So I buy books to take images. So when I buy the Edmund Hillary book, I don't buy the book particularly to read. I buy it for the images. So I'm totally driven by images, okay? So I'm image driven, not reading driven. The picture tells 1,000 stories to me. So when I see a picture of Edmund Hillary on the top of Everest with all the 12 climbers, the rest of it I make up. But it's true what I make up, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not a good reader. I just love pictures. So if I see a wonderful picture of Michael Hawthorne, who's the British racing driver, then I check out what he wears. So, you know, all these famous things that have happened, from George Mallory, 24, disappear on Everest. I've looked at all the books on George Mallory, and I look at all the clothes. And then I look at all his friends' clothes and everything else. And so if I go into a football crowd, like I'm doing a collaboration now on Lev Yashin, the goalkeeper, I'm doing a collaboration with Moscow Dynamo, and I look into the crowd in the 1950s to see what the crowd were wearing. So I don't read it, I look at it, you know.
That's great. This is the last thing I want to ask, and then I'll let you go.
Right.
You had initially made, when you were starting to make clothes, you had talked about how you were like inspired by, you know, you wanted to make clothes for pop stars and for music stuff.
Yeah. Right at the beginning.
If if you could make clothes for any band ever, who would it be?
Oh, it'd have to be Fleetwood Mac, the 1960s Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, this is pre Buckingham Nicks.
Yeah, Peter Green and the whole team. And I like Marvin Gaye as well. I mean, Marvin Gaye wears an orange cap like this. I didn't put this on because this was his, but it would be nice to have made some stuff for those type of guys because they're very hip. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Fleetwood Mac, I love Fleetwood Mac, and I love Peter Green, who was the original singer for Fleetwood Mac. So, and obviously I was very inspired by music between 67 and 71. It was all British pop music, you know.
Yeah.
It's been great, Jeremy, by the way. Fucking great. Really enjoyed it. It hasn't been like an interview at all.
I will say it's an absolute honor to speak with you. I really, really mean that.
And I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's really, you've not even asked me anything embarrassing. You've been great.
Well, Nigel, again, thank you so much. Have a good day. I'll see you.
Thank you very much. See ya.
You too. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening. Our show is produced by Blamo Media. We're edited by Amar Law, and our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like what you heard, you know the drill. Share the pod with a friend, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify now. They're big flex. Spotify has 5-star reviews. Go for it. Follow us on Instagram for all the hot content at Blamo Podcast. If you want to talk to us or give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can call us at 917-267-2495. Leave us a message. No one will answer it. We'll put it in a future episode. Or email us at info@blamopod.com. If you want to hang with us and join the Blam fam, visit patreon.com/Blamo, where we have tons and tons and tons of exclusive episodes and our incredible, amazing Slack community. All right, that's it for me. Happy holidays. See you soon.